Hi, Marilyn here with Cotton and Chocolate, and we're back to doing our piecing for Mayfair, and it's the center block and geese border on page 3. So let's get going, and the first step is our square and a square, which you're going to make 4, and it's a little bit different than we did in the first month because this is going to be a multicolored center, and this is our square and a square right here. You can see this here. It kind of doesn't look like it until you really look at it dissected. So we're going to be talking about how to make that. So you actually make it the same way, which you take your, center block and you press it to get that middle, and you press your 2 fabrics to get the center, and you sew them on. So just look at your picture here, and it has your top 2, 1 and 3 are going to be your green, and then your bottom right is the pink, the light pink, and your bottom left 4 is the dark pink. And so what I'm going to tell you right off the bat is when I went to lay these out for the demo, I realized that after I put them together, I accidentally flipped the colors. So I can't change it now because here we are. I mean, I can change it later, but I won't change it now. So when I got started, I did it right. So I have the opposite too. I have the green on one side and the pink on the other, which I wanted to show you is how you start. All good. Green and pink. All good, ready to go. So, but anyways, this is how you get started, is your green and your pink on one side. But I want to show you how easy it is to flip the colors. So here we go. I went that way, and then I had my green, but what I did is, obviously, I put, so when you were doing this, make sure you get your, I just put the green here and the pink there, okay? But what you really want to do is, when you're looking at your picture, is so you have your green and pink laid out, and I want to make sure that I do this right, and you're going to put the green here and the pink there, okay? Otherwise it's going to turn out backwards, so that you have it this way. So, and you know what, my problem is I didn't lay it out. I just kind of picked it up and did it. So that's really easy to mix it up. And so it's easy to fix it. I'll have to pick that out. But, or if you have an oops kit, you just cut a new one. That's easier, okay? But if you did them all backwards, that's okay too. It's just that when you piece your next step, which is your pinwheel, you have to make sure that these colors match. You just flip the way you have your pinwheel laid out. Either way, you have to make sure that these 2 colors go together. That's when I realized I had it flipped, is when I went to lay these out, they didn't match the layout in the diagram, and that's when I realized that they were backwards. Okay, so if you do them the other way, it's okay. You just make sure that those go together, okay? But in any case, going back to the square and a square, you start with opposite colors, and then you cut these off like we did in the first diagram, and then you refold these and press the seam in here and the seam in there, and then match those, cut those edges off, and then match those. And then if you recall, we marked our 1/4 inch and then cut them down to 4.5, and you're going to be making 4 of those. Okay, so I'm going to set those aside. We have our square and a square, and then our next step is making flying geese. So you're going to making flying geese. Flying geese A, you're going to be doing fabrics 1 and 5 with 5 as the base, and then flying geese B, 1 and 13 with 1 as the base, and that's the result. I'm not going to go through how to make them, but you're going to be cutting them to 2.5 and 4.5. So these are the tools. I actually have the tools set out that I'm making. So I cut my my square and a square down with my Tucker trimmer, and then and I don't know if I don't remember if I talked about it last time, but on these ones that don't have a non-slip back, I use my grippy spray that we do have at the shop. And they look a little foggy here because I spray them twice so that they're really, really solid when I'm cutting. when I put this down here and I'm ready to cut and I set this on here, it doesn't move at all. So if you're having trouble with it slipping, I highly recommend using the grippy spray. You just hold it far away, spray it, wait 60 seconds, and then I use 2 coats, spray it again. So I use that on like my Tucker trimmer. I have it sprayed, and then I use it on my wing clipper. Okay, and then the other tool is for this block is the block lock for cutting down your half square triangles, and then of course marking them with your Quilter's Magic Wand. So those are the tools that I'm using this time. So we'll put this aside. You're going to make your flying geese, and you'll have a result of 4 of those. And then you're going to be taking your square and a square, and then you're going to be sewing this to your square and a square. And then when I sewed it, I just sewed it this side up so I could see my intersection, and then I pressed it towards the goose. Okay, and then the next thing we're going to be doing is half square triangles. You're going to be using half square triangle A, fabrics 1 and 5, and you're going to take 2 squares of each of those and yielding 4 and press to fabric 5, and then half square triangle B. Where did it go? It was here somewhere. Well, I can get another one. It's where did it go, my camera guy?
I don't know.
I don't know. It was sitting here.
These were the other ones.
Oh, here it is. It's half square triangle B. It's right here in front of us. Ah, okay. Fabrics 8 and 9, and you're going to get 2 squares of those, and those will yield 4, and those are for our pinwheels right here, right in front of us. They didn't go anywhere. Okay, so you're going to get 4 of those, and you're going to square them all up to 2.5, and I did demonstrate last time using the block lock on how to square those up, and that's in our first video. Okay, so there you go with that, and then you're going to make your pinwheel center there, and again, make sure that before you sew those, they line up and match your square and a square. Okay, and then you're going to be using all your 2.5 inch squares of fabric 2, 10, and 13 to make a forged patch as shown on the left right here. So those together, I press to the dark or the blue, okay, and make my 4 patch. And you need 4 of those. And then you're going to be taking your other flying geese that you haven't used. These are going to be all used up, and lay them out like this here. These are going to be in the corner right here. So this is your 4 patch, and then your flying geese, and then your other half square triangle. And then just make sure that that green is facing outward, and that's your corner block. Okay, so you've made now all the components for the center. Okay, and you're going to lay those out. So I have that laid out, and I'm just going to flip that this way, and that's, let me get these out of the way so you don't get distracted. And that's one corner of this, pretend that's sewn together. And also when you're sewing these together, you're going to line up that point, you know, you line these blocks up, but line that point with your intersection there. And I sew it with this on top. Okay, so you'll line that up, sew that together, and then sew those together. Okay, so you have this corner here, this piece here, and that, but this is the layout for sewing them together, that intersection. Okay, and that should end up to be 16.5 inches. Okay, now there's more. We're not done. There's the back side. Okay, and this is going to be making our geese outside, and this is going to be making our 3 color flying geese. So we don't make them like we make the other ones because they're two different colors, so it doesn't really work with laying them out with the 5 1/4 inch background and all of that. We have to make them traditionally. So I'm going to show you in a second how to make that. Okay, so now we're going to be making our 3-color flying geese, meaning that we have the same middle, the large triangle, but we have 2 different colors on each side. We're going to be making 8 of each mirror image. So when you're making these, really lay these out so that they are laid out looking correct, because you don't want them, I don't know, mixed up in some other direction. So I have them laid out, and I would lay out all 8 pieces exactly how they're supposed to look, with the 8 with the blue color on the left, and then 8 with the blue on the right. Okay, so you don't get mixed up, ready to sew. Now, how do you sew these together? So what you do, I have part of one sewn, so I'm going to lay that triangle. I have it laid out correctly. I'm going to lay this down, and it's going to match evenly with that point and all the way on the bottom. And then I just sew my 1/4 inch all the way up here. It's going to go off to the top, and then I'm going to press it open. Okay, and then I'm just going to take and cut it off, hopefully, with my rotary cutter that's somewhere hiding. Sorry about that. Sorry with my back to you. I'm going to cut it off so that I have this blunt edge here, and then I'm going to take the other piece. I'm going to fold it over here so that it's sitting cleanly against there. So a 1/4 inch here. Open it up like that. I don't need to cut off the other edge. Now, what it is, it's going to be the same oversized flying geese as our other ones that we make the other method. Okay, so then I will lay it out like this and take my wing clipper and lay it down and cut it, the first cut at my 2.5 by 4.5 cut, then flip it around and cut it down to 2.5 by 4.5, just as we would this piece. So it's oversized, just like all the other ones. And I will get 8 of those that way and 8 of those this way. So they're very easy to make. They're just the traditional method of making flying geese. Okay, more tedious, but it still works. Okay, so now you're going to sew them together. And as you can see in the photograph, they have you sewing this pair together like this and this pair together like that. Okay, and this is how I've sewn them together. And I've sewn these so you have the blues sitting together, the pink on the outside, and then I did press them open just so it's not so bulky in the middle. I'm not a huge fan of pressing things open unless it gets too bulky. So I have that pressed open and that pressed open, and then you're going to sew that together. I just wanted to show you what the picture looked like, and then you would sew this together. Okay, so now you're going to take your fabric 7, which are cut 1.5 by 16, and you're going to sew these onto here, and you'll have 4 of these. So when I'm going to sew these, I'm going to put these, of course, are sewn together, but I'm going to put these here, and you will see this intersection. I mean, it's a little bit hard to see because it's a little blendy, but there's my point there, and you'll see it here, and you'll see it on here. So that's why I'll obviously pin them, but then watch those intersections so that I don't cut off my point. Okay? Sticking to my sweater. Okay, so you'll get 4 of those, and then you're going to sew these onto your block. So you'll sew, top and bottom, and then, oops, forgot. You have to make 4 half square triangles. So you're going to gather fabrics 10 and 12, sew those together, 2 squares of each, yielding 4 half square triangles, and you're going to square those up to 3.5. And I, again, use my block lock. I like this, again, I've told you the 6.5 inch size, so you have the ability to cut them down different sizes. So you'll square those up to 3.5, And if you look at the picture, it reminds you of which color, and it shows you that the blue goes to the outside. So you'll sew the other two with your half square triangle on it, and then sew those to the outside of your block. You have one more step to go. You aren't done yet, because if you see, it is encased with an outside sashing. And that is the piece that you saved from Fabric 13 that you set aside. If you remember that, it was a 7" by 24.5" piece. So you're going to subcut 2 strips, as it says here, 1.5 by 24.5 for the top and bottom, and 2 strips, 1.5 by 22.5 for the sides. So you're going to add the sides first, the 22.5 on the sides, and then you're going to add the top and bottom, 24.5, and the block should measure square 24.5 inches. Okay, and a lot of us don't have a 24.5" square, so what I do have a 20.5" big square ruler, so I lay that on top. So first of all, I'm going to lay my block out, and I'm going to spray it with my spray base and my hot iron, and then I'm going to flip it to the back, and I'm going to make sure all my seams are sitting flat. Nothing's twisted here and there that makes my block a little too small. So spray it, press it from the top very nicely, press it from the back very nicely. And then once I'm convinced that I have it pressed very well, then I'm going to put my rulers on top. If you don't have a big square ruler, then put a few other little rulers on top and make sure that it's sitting very flat. And then you're going to have to put it on your mat and make sure that it is 24.5 inches square or close to it. Okay, now what if it's way too big? Okay, I mean, what if it's like 25 or 25.5 inches? You do have a little leeway to cut it down because this is a sashing, but I would not cut anything down. I don't cut anything down till I start piecing things together, because you know you're going to be making this big, beautiful floral border. So we're going to make sure things piece together nicely. So just leave it as it is. And if you're not sure about the sizing, reach out to me. We'll come to the shop because we do have big square rulers there that we can remeasure it. If it's too little, then come see me, because we can also make this sashing a little bit bigger. Okay, that's easy to adjust. So anyways, get to sewing this big, beautiful center block that's going to showcase the rest of your quilt. Have fun with it. Happy Valentine's Day. And we'll see you next month.